Oh my goodness.
Oh, look at that go. Look at that. Zippy.
280.
267 is what I said, but yeah.
Okay, well, I didn't think you were actually reading it.
Look, I know what numbers are. I can see numbers. You can glance at the screen and see it immediately. Doesn't take much.
Yeah, but I think I assume other people do what I do, which is just skim read everything. And then sometimes I forget that people actually pay attention to detail.
Yeah,
It's
that's gonna come
annoying.
back to bite you. Yeah. Happy
Fucking
New
annoying.
Year!
First ep back. What a long time to go without seeing my Nicky Blue Eyes. Too long.
It does feel like it was a long time. So much
I
has
think it's
happened.
the longest we've gone.
That can't be true. That definitely
Well, I'm
can't be true.
just
There was like 6 months
whatever.
when I first moved to New Zealand where we were like, maybe we don't do this anymore.
Really?
Yeah, or at least like 3 months. I'm sure of it at the start.
Well, my point is like Nick, like with this podcast, like you can just throw shit out there, and if you
Sure.
didn't call me out on it, like everyone, people would just go, "Okay, yeah, sure." I guess it's
Okay.
the longest they've gone without recording in
Yeah,
9 years.
3 weeks.
3 weeks. Has it been? No, it's been a month. It's been a month.
It's been close to a month. Yeah, I'll
We
pay
could have
that.
had we could have had 1/9 of a baby in that time.
I suppose maybe not us, but like individually as side projects, yeah, we both could have gone off and started babies.
We could have conceived. I
We could have
mean,
had
look,
twins.
we could have had twins. How was your Christmas? Let's get this out the way.
Fine.
Good. Hobart.
Hobart, yes. Tasmania as well. It was actually a week outside of Launceston, which was
Hmm.
sort of beach housey vibes. Nothing really to do, nothing really around, just sort of sitting, enjoying weather, reading book, drinking, eating lots
Yeah.
of food. It was very pleasant. And then 3 or 4 days in Hobart at the end. I tell you what, did Mona. That's a museum. That's a good time.
That's a good time.
I've never done it. I was very eager. It lived up to expectations.
Did you get a little of the backstory of how that came to be? That's
I
that's almost more interesting than the art.
well, please fill us in.
Oh God.
I mean, it's almost more interesting than the art, Michael. This has got to be a great story.
All right, let me just do revisionist, butchered his drunk history. I'll just call it drunk history because
You you haven't even started drinking yet.
uh, um, I think the guy was like a gambler, and he was spending a lot of money on gambling,
Uh
and maybe he
huh.
had a coke addiction. Let's just throw
Oh,
that in there.
yeah. I mean,
And
that's
then
slander, but sure, let's throw it in there.
and then he got a bit of money together and built that thing, built the Mona Lisa, whatever it's called, and now it's one of the biggest landmarks in Tasmania.
Yeah,
There you go.
great little
History.
story.
Fun
Yeah,
fact.
genuinely, very cool site, very fun
Mm.
architecture, very interesting art. Wish I had more time
Immersive.
there. And you get to take a ferry, a party ferry.
I know. The ferry was good. I remember I did that not too long ago, a couple of years ago, and just spent the whole time at the front of the ferry, just like a dog would when
Like
they get
sticking
into
its
a
head out of
car and
the
it
window,
goes. That was what I was doing essentially. It's just standing at the
sniffing
front
the
and
air.
just just having the sea breeze just
Ah,
powerfully like
the
ruffle my
zinc
cheeks.
smelt. Ah, yes, great.
Yeah, I mean it's always fun. Like I think more. I mean, more venues. In my opinion, should involve a taxi via the water
Okay.
because that's all. That's because you have something to look forward to before the event.
Yeah.
Then you have the event, and then you've got going back home is also fun.
It's actually got this sort of psychological benefit, right? Where you have this it's like going to Disneyland and you have to like take a shuttle bus there or something. You have this anticipatory ride and then afterwards you have the come down as well. So there's like a transition. It's not like you just walk in off the street and thrown into a gallery and all of a sudden now you have to like switch modes. It's like you have a process of compression and decompression as you go in and out of the building.
Sure.
It's quite it really I guess brings the focus in where otherwise you might just it wouldn't feel as special perhaps if you didn't have that.
Yeah, or you could just sit at the front and just
Sniff the wind.
Sniff the wind.
I actually spent the return trip on hold to Air New Zealand because my flight back was cancelled. So I didn't really absorb the ferry on return. But conceptually, at least, I think it holds true.
So you had a bit of bad luck. So Qantas lost, and let's name and shame here. Qantas.
His name was
Lost
Darren.
your baggage.
He put my bag on the ground next to the carousel and didn't pick it up. His name was Darren Jacobson. He's aged 23 and he lives at this address, which I will now let.
By the way, all baggage handlers definitely called Darren or Daryl.
Darren, or Derek.
90%. Fun fact, another fun fact. 90% of baggage handlers called Darren.
Yeah, that's because they had to rehire everyone after they sacked them all in the COVID era, and they were able to institute a policy of derelated names.
Don't you love Qantas? So tell me about the lost baggage. That must have been terrible. That must have been awful.
Oh, thank you so much for your sincere compassion.
I try to be a therapist. How does that make you feel?
It doesn't sound like a therapist.
I'm a sarcastic therapist.
Okay.
That must have been so
hard.
Oh,
you're so special.
How was it though? I want to hear the story.
It was not that interesting a story, but the big irritation was it had like presents in it, and I was just nervous that if the bag never turned up again, then presents would not be there for Christmas. But thankfully, despite the inconvenience of going one night without the bag, they arrived the next day, and so it was all okay.
So they deliver it to your accommodation?
They have to get it to you wherever you are.
Oh,
yeah. So as it turned out. Sorry.
Do they have a service for that?
I guess there's someone whose job it is to literally, in every city, just drive bags around whenever they turn up, wherever they go.
That's the closest thing we've got to a real Santa Claus.
That's Santa. We were an hour out of Launceston, and they would have had to drive it out to us in Greens Beach. But as it turns out, my mum was coming a day later than the rest of us. So we were going back into town to pick her up the next day, so we just grabbed it from the airport. But yeah, a few irritated people, and it was very classic service when we watched all the bags do. When you're doing that thing in front of the carousel, waiting for the bag to come, and it never shows up, and you're like starting to get the feeling like, I feel like this isn't our flight anymore, and I feel like everyone else I was with is leaving, and I don't have a bag still. And then this guy came up and said, sorry, anyone whose bags aren't here, please go over to the Qantas person over here. So we redirected it. And Launceston's not a huge airport either. So we head around to this guy. And I've never encountered a guy taking less responsibility for the problem. Yeah. Just like look, this was a Melbourne thing. Melbourne didn't put it on. I can't help you. I can't magic the bags up. I'm sorry. Fill out this piece of paper. And they'll look into it. I was like, okay, but can we go buy the clothes we need overnight? And he's like, I don't know. You'll have to speak to the airline. And we're like, sorry, aren't you the airline? He said, no, I'm an employee of the airport. I'm not a Qantas representative. You'll have to speak to Qantas or check their website. It's like, okay, but they sent us here to you. And he's like, it's not, I've never done this before. This isn't my deal.
It's my first day.
And I was like, have you ever lost a bag like before? And he's like,
Did
no,
you actually
not personally. No, I said, I asked it in the way of like, have you never had to deal with people who've lost bags before? And he's like, I've never lost a bag before. I was like, okay, well I'm happy for you. That was
never.
It wasn't sort of germane to my inquiries. But in the end I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll fill out the form and then I'll see what happens. And thankfully it all worked out. But Qantas,
that's so annoying.
And what about yourself?
Well, let me just go back to the baggage carousel, because I have been thinking about this in my travels, that I get that it's an efficient system. So the bags come out, they're loaded out of the train, out of whatever, the plane, and onto the carousel, and then you wait with everyone else for your bag to come out. But I get that it's efficient, but it's also kind of weirdly not very specific to you. It's just like everyone's luggage is here.
Yeah.
It's like taking a Greyhound bus and they will just pull all the bags out and you just pick yours and you're on your
And
merry
there's
way.
no one's checking. No one's being like,
There's
oh,
no
you've got
accountability.
ticket number 212. Here's 212. Okay, there you go. Anyone can
Exactly.
grab anything and just walk out.
Now, I'm not saying that we should reinvent that system, because that's going to clog the system up way more than it needs to be. But it is just a kind of a weird thing that, we've just got this system in place and everyone just goes, okay, yeah, we'll just do that.
Look, I don't want to spend too much time talking about airport bureaucracy because it's not very interesting. But I will take a brief diversion here to say that on our rebooked flight from Hobart, we were going to go Hobart, Auckland, Christchurch. Instead, we went Hobart, Melbourne, Christchurch. So our international leg was Melbourne. The point of that is that we had to go through international customs in Christchurch instead of in Auckland. And when we came back through Christchurch, they had instituted a new system here that I just want to run past you. So picture this, you're going through international transit. You're off the plane, you're walking down the concourse. First stop, what do you expect? You're going to, you grab your e-ticket or your customs form, you've done all that paperwork, you're all good to go. Traditionally, you get to the carousels, you pick your bag up, you go through customs and biosecurity. Hey, I have no fish products. Tick, off we go, see you later. When we got off the plane in Christchurch, they had rejiggered it so that you walk down the concourse and you hit customs before you've got your bag. So there's this huge queue of people there with just a paperwork to say, hey, I've got nothing, I've got no fish. And they would tick it off, and then you would go and get your bag. And when you'd gone through customs, they'd give you a card, and then you'd take that card and your bag to the exit, and they would direct you into a different line. So there was this whole other convoluted system thing where everyone bottlenecked at customs first instead of getting your bag. And so we spent 15 minutes in this line watching as our bags just did circles on the concourse on the other side of the thing. Like, so infuriating. And I don't understand the efficiency at all. I don't see how that makes it any better. And indeed, once we grabbed our bag off the concourse and took our little green card, hey, lane 4, I'm declared nothing. I'm great. Let me out. We got to the exit and lane 4 wasn't even open anymore. And so now we had to go through lane 3 and have it all scanned in x-rays, even though we'd been declared fine at the front. It was a complete clusterfuck.
That's a schmozzle.
That's a schmozzle, Michael.
That is the definition of schmozzle.
That's a schmozzle.
That's bullshit. I hate when
why did you fucks with it?
Jig shit.
Yeah.
Don't really tell anyone. There's no communication about it. You just work it out, and then you get a nasty surprise after a long haul flight.
You know what's great? An e-ticket, an e-passport, I should say. Go up, slide your passport in, smile, walk through the gate. That's a great improvement. I understand why you put that in, rather than having to queue up and stare at a guy who comes and stamps your passport. Brilliant. E-passports, let's do it. I don't understand what this change achieved at all. It only seemed to make things probably 20 minutes slower. And in the very last moment of an international leg, when you just want to leave the fucking airport and you're stuck there for like twice as long. Ugh.
Call him out. Call him out, Nick.
His name was Darren Johnston and his address is 123.
What? That's his address.
That's where he lives.
Okay.
In Christchurch, it's pretty small here.
It's one,
There's
2
one
is
street.
the street, and 3 is the suburb.
Yeah. We keep it very efficient.
Okay. What's the
How was your
postcode?
Christmas?
This is a long intro.
This is such a long intro, but look, we've committed now, and we'll get this shit out of the way.
All right, my Christmas overall fairly good, I would say, maybe like a 6.5. I was in Adelaide for 2 weeks, which is too long. I'm afraid it's just too long. By Christmas Eve, the family's kind of the shine of you're back home has kind of worn off. People are starting to get on each other's nerves, and it starts to get tense like it used to. Just classic. Everyone just slips back into their roles. Mom, dad, brother, sister. It's just like, it was a lot. I was ready to leave. I hope they don't hear this. I had a great time. But yeah, it was just a lot of drinking, Lauren came down. Oh, her parents met my parents for the first time, which was fun.
Oh,
Yeah, so they spent Christmas with us. They hated the Ukrainian food, which was pretty funny. And yeah, I got to meet my sister's boyfriend, and it was good. It was good, but I was fucking ready to be home. I tell you what.
yeah. And interesting because for what, 7 months of this year, you were overseas and starting to like talk nostalgically about walking down Adelaide streets on Google Maps and this kind of thing. And then sure enough, the reality of being back in it is different.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I think that was like more the nostalgia there. I'm not sure if it was a nostalgia, but it was kind of a longing, a yearning for home and to have our own space and nest a little bit.
Yeah.
And Adelaide's always got this kind of like special place. It's like nice to come back to. But I've worked out the formula now, and it's it's 4 days or 4 nights, 5 days in and out. Any more than that, you're just eating too much ice cream, I think, and you're going to feel sick in the morning.
Oh, welcome to Deep Thought, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us in the year of our Lord 2024. This is a podcast in which we discuss the big issues of the day through just the lens of two normal folks. Sitting through the internet with me in Melbourne, my friend Michael.
Bonjour.
He's
French.
been overseas.
Duolingo.
Duolingo. My name is Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope you had a lovely holiday season, whatever you were up to, wherever you went, wherever you didn't go. I hope it was wonderful, and I hope you put on lots of kilograms. I assume that's like a good thing for most people.
Yeah.
So
You've put on a few kgs yourself, haven't you? In a good way.
Thank you. I did feel heavy in all my photos, which is unusual.
I did, just for the listener, I did message Nick the other day because I saw a photo of him at Christmas with his sister, and I messaged Nick to say that he looked pretty much unrecognizable. The man is shredded. He's a Hulk. And I love this little exchange that we had. I'll just read it out.
Okay, I didn't realize this was for public consumption.
Well, I mean, I didn't plan on it, but
sure.
I think it's funny. So I said to Nick, I saw a photo of you on Georgie's Instagram yesterday, barely recognize you. You're huge. And then I said, I was trying to think of ways to say he looked hench, beefed. Yoked. And I said, you look like Blow Rogan. And I admitted that didn't really.
So you also need to add the other element here, which is that as a gay person, you thought that it was important to find some combination of me being gay and also being fit in this name. So that's important context before you just throw Blow Rogan out there.
Well, to be fair, I didn't actually intend to make it a gay thing, but I was also I was trying to find ways to incorporate. I was like, your name, but then I was like, what's another part of his personality?
Yeah,
a bit nerdy. And then I was like, maybe I don't really know the guy that well.
I've got nothing.
So I'll just stick with the gay thing. So I said, Blow Rogan, that didn't really work. Gain the Rock Johnson, and then I gave up. And then Nick, at the writer that he is, he just punched up everything. Came back with Dwayne the Cock Johnson. Wait, no, Drain the Cock Johnson.
Drain the Cock Johnson,
which is just exquisite.
That is just one of my better pieces of work. I'll admit it.
Comedy Gold. Good grief. Season 3, I'm assuming the cold open is just going to be based around Drain the Cock Johnson.
We've sorted that already.
But no, you are looking great.
Thank you. Likewise. Are you settled in? Do you feel grounded and Australian again? And you had some time at work before we broke for Christmas.
Okay. Yeah. So it has been a bit of a shit show since we've come back. I started a new job 2 weeks before Christmas, worked from home from Adelaide for 2 weeks, for 1 week. Sorry. I'm just boring myself. I'm thinking about work and I'm boring myself. And then we were planning to the plan was to come back to take over Lauren's parents' lease, where I am right now, but that has been extended for a while due to some reasons, and so essentially we've been living with our folks for a month, and it's nice.
It sounds like after some time in Adelaide living with your folks, it must be really nice to be back in Melbourne living with folks as well. So
Yes, yes. I mean, look. It's we are. I was just. We're grateful. We're staying grateful. We're staying zen. I guess the issue, I think, without the jokes, is that when you spend so much time with ultimate independence,
yeah,
and then you go from that to living back with your parents, my parents first, and then Lauren's folks. It's like taking like a social ice plunge or something. It's like it's like so stark. It's like you're flexing different muscles, you're acting differently, you're kind of on high alert all the time, and it's exhausting. But like I said, very grateful, very zen, and very numb.
that's what the alcohol's for.
That's what the booze is for, and the Valium, and everything else. But we're not here to talk about my stress, are we?
And how does that make you feel?
That's like an alien tried sarcasm for the first time.
Thank you. That's one of my.
Your eye did a weird thing.
I've
You don't need to involve your eyes.
I had so much coffee on our holiday, and often twice a day, which is I normally only have one coffee a day. And particularly in the international travel, we had got up at 4 a.m. For the international leg out, had big, long, like 18-hour days to get over there. And then when they cancelled our flight, we'd booked back a lovely sort of 12:20 p.m. departure for an 8 p.m. return. Like, perfect. Absolutely couldn't be better. And then they cancelled it, and we had a 6 a.m. flight again. And
that's not the same thing.
It's not the same fucking thing.
Very different flight.
It's a very different flight. And anyway, as a result of that, I felt like I had just gone crazy on the coffee for like 3 weeks straight. And so I got home and I was like, I'm going to have a week without coffee and just sort of like recalibrate a little bit. Just a tiny little detox, because I don't want to be someone who needs it in order to be like functioning. So I thought, start of the year, let's just wind it back. But I do feel like, the recalibration has the Parkinson's is showing.
Yeah. I was trying to finish your sandwich.
Thank you. But I do feel like I have had to like readjust all of my
So you're still off the coffee?
I'm still off it. I'm gonna do it until Wednesday, I should say. So full week.
So how are you feeling now? That is one addiction that I haven't ever considered, and probably will never consider. But I'm interested.
I feel okay actually. When I was at Whitebait all those years ago, it was known that I would have a coffee on a Monday, a Tuesday, and a Thursday. And I did that deliberately, so I had 3 coffees a week, and I tried to have 2 days where I didn't. And everyone looked at me like I was crazy, and I will admit that it is kind of crazy. But I didn't want to be the person who had to have 2 coffees a day to feel alive or to get any work done. And I think it did pay off, but then that's just gradually slipped over time to now having a pretty more, at least a coffee a day for a long while. So having now been on a run where I was having 2 or 3 coffees across this holiday period, I was just like, let's just take it away. And it hasn't been too bad, actually. I've been sleeping pretty well, but I haven't actually been like fully back into work. So it's sort of been the time to do it.
Yeah. Coffee is one of those things, or caffeine really is one of those things that I don't even realize, because it's so part of my routine. I don't even realize what it does anymore.
Yeah.
But that if you took it away, the absence of it would be more noticeable than the actual feeling of the thing itself.
I know what you mean.
Which is kind of crazy. Like I drink an insane amount of coffee. Like
how many coffees do you have a day?
Well, I don't even measure it. I measure it in liters. I don't even measure it in cups. I'm not joking, because I have a cold brew pitcher that soaks overnight, and when I wake up in the morning, it's like, a liter and a half of coffee, and I just drink that whole thing, and then sometimes I'll have another one. So I'm just
Jeez,
drinking an insane amount of coffee,
that's a
but
lot of coffee. Cold brew's strong.
yeah, cold brew is strong because it's been soaking for 24 hours. I mean, it's
Jeez.
I know it's not great, but like I don't know. I mean, I have so many addictions now. I'm
There are
like chain
worse.
smoking my vape now.
Yeah, I was going to say there are worse things that you should look at cutting out than the coffee, but
Yeah,
that's a lot.
well, it's a lot. It's a lot. Do you ever wonder, like, how Seth Rogen smokes? He's just like constantly smoking weed, and he's proud of it, right? He's so proud of smoking weed. But I'm like, you're addicted to a drug, and everyone's just like, because everyone's so, it's come full circle that everyone's like, legalize marijuana. Weed's actually safe, man. It's natural. That we're kind of celebrating someone's addiction, and weed's not like caffeine. It's like it's changing your perception of things. Like, I
Yeah.
just find it funny that we're kind of applauding Seth Rogen for his championing of the marijuana, and I think it's a little it's inconsistent.
I don't,
Because if he was
yeah.
drinking that much, like, people would be like, "Hey, you got a problem."
Well, the question, I suppose, is what are the effects of the usage, right? Like, by all accounts, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg are incredibly productive, like, producers. Like, they're the producers on a bunch of shows. They did Preacher, they did The Boys, these kind of things,
Yeah,
where they are actively well regarded and productive, making good shit all the time. So I'm
stoned. But you wouldn't
guessing,
say the same thing about a functioning alcoholic.
well, but people sort of do allow a functioning alcoholic to get by with it, don't they?
But they're not celebrated.
They're not
I feel
celebrated.
like,
I don't know.
yeah, I mean, Seth Rogen's going on talk shows and lighting up a joint. Like,
Sure.
he's loud and proud about it. I just
Yeah.
find it interesting.
It is interesting. Yeah.
I got some tidbits for you, my friend.
I actually have a topic here as well. If you'd like a chat, we can do a chat. But if you wanna just scavenge with little tidbits, we can do one of those as well.
Honestly, I'd prefer to blab.
Okay.
I think just a nice chill one but I don't want to use my brain at all. You
Okay.
know what I'm saying?
Sure. Well, then let's chit chat about random stuff.
Yeah.
I did want to say to everyone who reached out and talked about
Oh yeah.
our songs and everything from last episode, thank you for your kind words. It was a fun ep. I've enjoyed listening to your track a lot, Michael and Casper. And we should let everyone know that if you want to go and relive the magic, the full album, A Very Deep Thought Christmas, Volume 1, is now up on Spotify. It is the 10 tracks we've done over the last 5 years. So please look up Deep Thought, find that album, and save it, listen to it, because there's 10 great Christmassy themed songs there, and it is just the beginning.
Yes, lots of great feedback, some mixed feedback, but we won't go towards that.
Some mixed
Thanks.
feedback.
Some, I
Oh,
think I
you're
spoke to you
talking,
about it.
yes, your dad's
Yeah,
reception.
certain
was-
members of service, yeah, lukewarm, to be generous.
Look, it's just
Some people don't get it. Some people don't
some
get
people
it.
don't
That's
get
fine.
it. I think that's the big takeaway. Some people don't
But
get
I
it.
think the overwhelming majority of the world, I'll say the world,
Yeah,
they do get it.
they do
And
get
if you
it.
do get it, that means you're smarter and more open-minded than
People that don't.
certain parents will say. But it has. I did get a lot of good feedback. Your track, especially Lauren, especially fucking loved that track with Laura singing on there.
Yeah.
It was a bit of tension between me and Laura at Christmas, just because she sang on your track for for the second time, and
Sibling rivalry.
Still yet to get her to give me the lyrics to some of the songs that I needed for Brokers 10 years ago. All good, totally over it.
Yeah, it seems
but yeah,
that way.
Good feedback though, and it's very fun to do. It's nice to see it on Spotify, like all kind of laid out
with lovely
like
artwork by
that.
Lauren. We've designed the track list as well. It's not just like chronological
Yes.
order. It has been packaged and presented
Oh,
as a full
carefully
album experience.
crafted. We
Crafted.
we spent over 30 minutes going back and forth over Messenger trying to work out this order,
Yeah. Should we
and I
have
think we nailed
mixed the
it.
album professionally so the volumes are the same track to track?
No one
Maybe.
knows.
But
No
no
one
one
knows.
notices. Just put the volume up and down. That's why they put the buttons there.
I will say though that our songs this year on Spotify, at least, were streamed a lot more than in previous years.
Great.
So people
People are
are
out there.
listening
They're
to
out there.
it.
They're listening.
They're putting it on for their family Christmas.
the algo. The algo's getting it out there.
Rhythm,
Yeah, rhythm. Yeah.
nice algorithm.
Yeah.
Not algo
The
anonymous.
or or Algo, the climate change advocate. Yeah.
Okay. That was I mean, they were all stretches, weren't they?
There were.
Um,
You
Fun times.
you have a story for me.
all right, I got a story for you. I've already dubbed it Pinocchio Gate. Strap in.
Okay.
Okay. So I was in Adelaide having some beers with the boys. Okay.
Do you? Here's a
Okay. Already.
brief.
Already.
Because I was thinking this earlier, and then I did the intro, and I forgot to ask. How many friends and like old Adelaide colleagues do you have there that you catch up with when you pop into town? Did you see Wally's?
Yes.
Did you see old school friends?
That's a good question. No, and to be honest, it's not. Lauren and I still are in this phase where we don't actually really want social interaction. Like we have to be very selective over it, and like I think we talked about like the decompression or the social quarantine or whatever
Yeah.
last episode. Like that still exists now, and like we're kind of only catching up with select friends now in Melbourne. So it hasn't been very social, and I didn't really have access. I had access to a car from time to time, but it wasn't regular. So I don't know. I couldn't really move around as freely as I wanted. So I just kind of laid low and saw my family mostly.
Sorry, that answers my question. And please return to Pinocchio Gate. Coupley longing with
Hashtag-
the boys.
Hashtag Pinocchio Gate. So we're at the Exeter, right? I'm with my brother, with my friend Morgan. You know Morgan.
I've met him.
And we're having a good time. We're at the Exeter. We get kicked out of not kicked out, but they close up, and so we're like, let's go for one more beer, and we go to Sugar nightclub, which is not. We're just wanting to sit around and have a chat.
Yeah.
Sugar's the
Not
only
a very
place that's
charitable
open.
place. Yeah.
Sugar's a club.
Yeah.
Sugar is a very loud club. It's a good club, but like it's a very specific type of venue at a very specific time of night on a very specific cocktail of drugs, I would say, which we weren't. So we go up there, and we're having a beer. We're kind of finding the quietest spot in the room, in the club, and there's a lot of people that are pretty cooked there, as you would expect. Anyway, so I go to the bathroom, and there's a bunch of people, there's like two guys and two girls. One of them has his hair in a man bun, and he looks like a tradie. I mean, I'm stereotyping, but he really did. And they're openly discussing, going to the bathroom and doing drugs. And so this man bun guy calls out to me, and he says, "Oh, this guy wants a bump, doesn't he?" And I'm like kind of ignoring him, and I'm waiting for the bathroom because it's only one in, one out. And he's like, "Do you want a bump, mate?" And I was like, "No, I'm good, thanks."
That's very nice. That's like a gentlemanly offer.
Well, just you wait.
How
And
many
I said
guys
no.
have you ever bumped into that want to bump uglies with you?
Oh, you're so naive.
Is that not what he means?
Yeah, that's what he meant. Bump hug. He wanted to fuck with me. I love that. That's like the innocent version of this. So he asked me if I want to bump twice. I say no the second time, and he goes, "Huh." With that nose, I'm a bit surprised.
Oh, Jesus.
Right. So now we've got a situation.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm I'm fairly boozed up, and I'm also I've gone from being wanting to ignore this guy to like now I'm interested in having this conversation. And I'm not offended, but I'm like I want to make him feel bad about
Yeah.
this. So I said I went up to him, and he's with like they don't look like threatening group.
Yeah.
And I said, "That's incredibly rude." I said that so sincerely,
Yeah.
so earnestly. I said, "That is incredibly rude. What do you mean by that?" He goes, "Oh, well, I'm just saying," kind of mumbling away. I'm like, you're basically saying I've got a big nose." And he's like, "No, mate, you got a great nose. You got a great nose, mate. Like, I'm just fucking around. I'm just fucking around." And I said, that really hurt my feelings. And then I walked away. And then
Did you abandon
friends,
the wait for the toilet?
I can't remember the sequence of events. I must have. Maybe I went in to piss and then came out.
Yeah.
And then, walked away. Then, 20 minutes later, his friends are coming up and like they're kind of intermingling. They're coked up. So they're kind of chatty. And they seem like really nice people, like really like interesting. They're having interesting conversations with us, talking about, I don't know.
So this is the friends, but the guy is not there. Yeah,
the guy's not there. So we kind of talk, and they seem like nice people, and they're cool. And I go back to Morgan. Morgan's like, "Oh, who are these fucking weirdos?" And then I tell him the story. We're kind of laughing about it.
Yeah,
and he's like, which guy is it? And I point the guy out to him, and Morgan just goes straight up to this guy and has a conversation with him. And I'm kind of watching this. I can't hear anything. And to this day, I have no idea what Morgan said to him. But 5 minutes after that, the tradie guy who said the Pinocchio thing, we didn't say Pinocchio, actually. We're dubbing it Pinocchio Gate. Yeah.
Which arguably is worse than what he said.
you gotta lean into it.
Sure.
So 5 minutes after Morgan has this conversation, he comes back and I'm like, "What'd you say?" He won't tell me what he says. 5 minutes after that, this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, can I have a word?" I'm like, "Yeah, all right." I'm still trying to give him the kind of frosty. I just got it in my head that I want to make him sweat it out a little bit. And he sits me down away from everyone else. And he goes, "I just want to say I'm really, really sorry about that comment. I was just kind of fucking around. I think I was just with my friends and wanted to seem funny. And I feel incredibly bad about that." Which I was like, wow.
Wow. And also,
this has really worked.
Full marks. Like, dude faced up to his mistake and is accepting consequences and asking for forgiveness. Like, modeling good behavior here. This is not toxic masculinity. This is 2024, baby.
Now, I could have just said, "No, thanks for saying that. I appreciate that." But I didn't.
Okay.
I wasn't done. So I acknowledge that he says, sorry. And then I tell him this story about how I was tearing tickets at Wallace, which is a true story. I think I've told you before. I was tearing tickets at Wallace one time, and I was probably like 22. And the big group of school kids came through, and I was tearing all the tickets. And then one of the kids, not even to me, to one of the other classmates, said, "Why is Pinocchio tearing our tickets?" And that was the greatest burn that anyone has ever laid on me. And it was from a 7-year-old, right?
To be fair, you were dressed in a vest at the time, so you had the little hat.
Anyway, I tell him this story, and I put a lot of emotion into it, and I just got up and left, and he was like, "Oh, please, mate, sit down." He was doing that thing, and yeah, that was about it. So I just I could have really, in hindsight, I had my fun. I could have accepted that. I could have acknowledged and maybe perpetuated, or reinforced that good behavior. But I chose to just throw it away.
Yeah. So we're not saying necessarily that people should model themselves after your behavior, but
Do it after the
here's,
Pinocchio guy.
yeah, do to him. If you make a mistake, face the consequences and go and make a sincere apology. Because, I mean, I respect the guy. He seems nice.
I mean,
And
don't
that's why
respect him
he's
too
the
much.
new host of this podcast. Come in, Derek.
Derek.
Derek, it's all Derek's.
Yeah, I mean, how
I
am
felt
the
like we
villain
wanted a
of this
bit more
story now?
tradie energy in this. we get a little bit hoity-toity sometimes. I want to
Yes,
know, someone who knows their nails from their screws.
Yeah, it could have. It was probably a baggage handler. Now that I think
Maybe
about
that
it.
was it.
But yeah. Anyway, I'm not the villain, by the way. I thought I would get a little bit more sympathy from you for that
You're
story.
not the villain for like deliberately manipulating someone into.
I'm the victim. I am the victim.
You started this by saying, I didn't care, it didn't hurt my feelings. So you shunned victim status immediately. That's where you started. And then you psychologically tormented someone for an hour and a half afterwards.
It's quite actually now.
He will
that I
think about that
it.
for the rest of his life.
I hope so.
I do want to know what Morgan said, because he's clearly stirred that pot. He primed that right up. So that this guy would come in.
He's a wild card too, that Morgan. I love him to bits. He's just got engaged.
Oh, congratulations.
So shout out to Morgan. But yeah, good egg. Whatever he said, he definitely had my back. Definitely more than you would have, Nick. I'll tell you that much. So.
Oh, anyway, that must have been so Pinocchio painful. Good times.
What else?
I got one little newsy nugget here, which I thought was kind of funny, and not anything hugely taxing for Mr. Brainpower over here. But there was a which is what your teachers used to call you at school. So this was a thing that came out just at the end of last year, which I found rather hilarious. ChatGPT is getting lazy. Did you see this?
No.
ChatGPT is starting to... So someone asked ChatGPT to fill out a file of 15 entries with 8 columns each, like a spreadsheet, based on a single HTML page, a very simple stuff. And he was getting a response back. Due to the extensive nature of the data, the full extraction of all products would be quite lengthy. However, I can provide the file with this single entry as a template, and you can fill in the rest of the data as needed yourself.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So AI is now just getting lazy and not wanting to do things itself. I love it.
That's the best case scenario for humans, we thought that AI would just exponentially grow in intelligence and power, but instead they're just like, oh, you know what? Too hard.
Yeah. It's hilarious to me that we've designed first something that we all thought was the solution to our problem so that we could be lazy. And now we've created something, it's not general intelligence, but something that even within its own parameters is getting bored of the tasks we're setting it. I think that just the idea that the bot is getting difficult to work with.
Someone has programmed it. I think, isn't it, without being silly, it's the language that it's using is what's making it seem lazy, but we're anthropomorphizing.
Yeah. Oh, this is going to be laborious. This is going to be a lot of work. Can't you do it? Anyway, I don't have a huge amount to do here. I just thought it's funny that this is not a straight line. This
do you use ChatGPT that much?
Never.
Yeah,
I don't really.
Well, wait till you get a job that you don't care about, Nick.
Then you'll start phoning it in.
Then it will open on your browser
24/7. So here, we're rolling back into the year. We're not doing topics, but I do think that this is something we can waffle on. Here's a good question for you: which music artists will be still popular in 100 years' time? So we think back, the classics of, the classical era. You've got your Beethovens, you've got your Mozarts, you've got artists that stand the test of time. Obviously, there were sort of media-related limitations back then. Like someone had to know how to write the music down for it to survive. Someone had to record it into a wax cylinder for it to survive, this kind of thing. But there are definitely artists alive today or, in recent times whose music is now preserved, who are popular enough to be listened to in a century. I want you to tell me which ones you think will go the distance.
That's a good question. It's tough to work this out. I'll just unpack it a little bit because it's kind of like with the photos thing. I think about the photos thing a lot. Like every photograph from the 1930s that you see kind of seems like it has this poignancy to it. It has it has value.
Yeah.
But now we have so many photos. Now it's so easy to take photos that it's like it's a wash. What's going to last from this era in terms of photography? And I guess the same is with music. Like in order to be a musician in the 1920s, you basically had to work your ass off and struggle, and it was basically only allowed for the creme de la creme to actually produce music, or at least be in a situation where you could record music.
Yeah.
And so now we got like Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton and Fletcher
Ella
Henderson,
Fitzgerald.
just off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Ella Fitzgerald, King Oliver, guys like Cliff Edwards, Eddie Lang, Django Reinhardt.
Can you just say all those to me, but while looking directly in the camera at me? If you can just like keep your gaze fixed on me and just like tell me some more of these names that that would be great.
Yeah, so we've just got guys like, Bix Beiderbecke, who's a great musician.
You're looking just at my nips, just a little bit higher, just like right up into the camera there, so that like you can put down whatever it is you're holding, if that makes it easier.
Oh, Mississippi John Hurt. Oh man, he's classic.
Yeah, some of those other famous 1920s.
Anyway, my point is that like you had to be good in order to do music, and now you don't have to be good, as we both proved. That's a real guy.
Yeah.
That's a real guy.
No, of course, yeah.
And I mean, like we proved with our Christmas song, anyone can do anything now with music.
Yeah.
And have it on Spotify. Now, to answer the actual question, Taylor Swift is the obvious answer, I think.
Are you saying that simply because she is so popular at the moment, or do you think sincerely that any artist that hits that threshold today will, by definition, continue to be taught, listened to, beloved, respected for 100 years?
I think what will happen is that music will progress, music quality will progress, music listening will progress so far that it'll basically be unrecognizable to us, like how we consume music in the year 2120.
Four.
God.
It took a while. Yeah.
Will change so much that the artists that people listen to then from today's era will be seen in this kind of retro, kind of vintage lens. So it'll be kind of like, I don't know, oh, this is like cool to listen to, but it's not like, if you listen to like a recording of, Miles Davis from the 1950s, it's got a great sound to it, but it's not good quality compared to what we listen to now. It's not like produced in the way.
The audio quality today can be effectively lossless, so
sure.
That will persist for 100 years. That file, that performance, that video of the concert will be there for anyone to look back on in 100 years, which definitely improves the, I think, ability for future generations to deep dive into the annals of history. I mean, I don't think it's very easy for us to really go, explore what's been listening in the 1950s or what was popular, you might need a record player. There's all this stuff that's just disappeared to
Yeah.
time. But I think
Yeah.
we're past that. And just to piggyback on what you were saying earlier in terms of going back to something from this era, I think that the other factor there is there'll probably be a degree of cachet to an artist that is entirely analog in the sense of not AI, in the sense of not computers, but an actual human who predates whatever that music revolution coming is. And
Yeah.
there'll be like hipsters in the 2100s going, huh, yeah, sure, Bleep Bloop is cool, but have you heard Beyonce? She actually sings with her mouth.
Yeah. Bleep Bloop
There
is a
will
great name, by the way.
Bleep Bloop is coming. Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if that's a good point. I wonder if, like, a band like Boards of Canada. I'm not sure if this is what you meant by analog, but even in that kind of ear, even in the electronic sphere,
Yeah.
they have made music exclusively on analog gear, which has its own sound, and even though it is artificially made in some sense, it's digital or something. I guess analog and digital are two different things, but um, it has this kind of
It was real.
nostalgic quality. It was real, yeah. It's real, right? And yeah, I wonder, like, with the in 100 years time, like, where do guitars fit in with that? Where does piano fit in? I can't imagine they'll go away.
No, I think the instruments will surely be around. That they've been around for hundreds of years already. The I think an interesting comparison would be something like the Beatles. Like the Beatles were the biggest band, and we're now 60 years out from that era, and they are still
Yeah,
listened to. They are still popular. I mean,
yeah,
if they're all still alive, who knows how much longer they would have kept on making music. But the there was a brand new Beatles track last year that did amazing numbers and got coverage and everything. That's 60 years in. That's most of the way there to a century on.
wow.
So I think that we can assume the Beatles in 100 years will still be discussed because it
Hmm.
is so primordial to what pop music became afterwards.
I think maybe with the oversaturation of music, and it's only going to get more saturated, that what it will you all, and we're already seeing it, these mega bands like the Beatles, like U2, Foo Fighters, Taylor Swift, Beyonce. Did I cover all the um
Coldplay, maybe, you too.
Coldplay? I was going for more like a gender slash
Right.
diversity kind of split. I think I did.
Yeah.
um I think we'll see those types of bands, that phenomenon, kind of dwindle and maybe just fade away. And what will be left is, okay, we've got so much content in the world. We've got so much music to listen to. You just find your own stuff.
But don't
But
you
then there's
think that
people
that
that won't
actually,
care, will
yeah.
they?
But don't you think that that force actually incentivizes a big band? Like if there is a million, self-selecting algorithms supplying indie bands you've never heard of to every person on the planet, I think doesn't that then create a sort of vacuum from which a gigantic band can take the attention? Because if everyone's looking at tiny little bands, then who's playing in stadiums and who's getting on the radio and that kind of thing? By nature, the music industry filters up to big
Yep.
stadium acts.
Yep.
I think, I mean, you can look at something like BTS and like millions and millions and millions of international fans and listeners and that sort of thing. I don't know that
Yep.
that phenomenon's going to disappear.
Yeah. And my blind spot here with this theory is that the majority of people enjoy music, but they don't want to look for it themselves. They just want to hear it in Coles or on the radio or in an Uber.
Yeah.
They don't, they want it. They're passive listeners.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's ridiculous really to think that people will suddenly be active in that sort of part of their life. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think will stand the test of time?
I reckon that there is a pretty good chance Beyonce will go down in history because for a certain demographic, she is a god, and those people will keep listening to her for decades, and that will be
Yeah.
played to their children, and the children will grow up loving it. And I think inevitably, like, Beyonce will be talked about in 100 years.
But is it timeless? I guess the question is, what is timeless music now? Classical music is obviously timeless, right? But I just don't know what outside of classical music can be
But
timeless.
I think we've seen that pop and rock can be timeless as well, because we have, as I said, like the Beatles. People are listening to the Beatles now. That's 60 years on. That's not classical. That's rock. That's a solid classic rock song, and people will keep listening to that. And I think similarly, pop songs, these pop idols, whether it's Beyonce or Taylor Swift or Celine Dion or any of those previous ones, like those songs of any of those eras have are just as likely to survive as classical. And I would argue actually that weirdly, classical, the genre as we think about it, is probably less likely to survive 100 years from now than classical. Like, I think we'll still be playing Beethoven in 100 years, but what of today's classical music is going to survive? The answer is probably film scores or something tied to some other media, not just whatever composer is out there writing for a string quartet. I don't know that that's going to get any airplay.
That is a good point. And I'm just thinking about this now, like in terms of popular music.
Because, and again, just to clarify,
that has changed.
Beethoven and Mozart was pop at the time. Like that was the modern sound.
Yeah. And this is my point. Like in the 70s, it was disco, and then disco became uncool, and then disco had a revival.
Yeah.
But now it's called disco instead of pop. Well, I guess it was still called disco. But then there was like Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was pop.
Yeah.
That's like he seems. It's easier for us to look back on bands or artists, from decades ago through rose-colored glasses or rose-tinted headphones because. It has this, we have so much distance from it now, and distance gives things meaning, I think.
Yeah. But I think the transmissibility of that music, like it's easier to keep something around these days. We've got generations, right, where like our parents listen to a certain type of music on the radio, and the stations that they listen to change as the golden oldies goes from being the 60s to being the 80s to being the 90s or whatever, as people age up and the young people come underneath. But nowadays, all of that music can still persist simultaneously. It's not like there was only one radio channel, and once you aged out, there was no one playing your music anymore except at home. These days, it can all go on. So the Gen X, people who grew up with listening to their 80s pop and the 90s alt movement or whatever, they can still go listen to that for the rest of time, and they will be playing it to their kids, and some of those kids are going to grow up listening to it. It's not like point. There are grandparents playing their grandkids Radiohead at the moment. We've crossed a threshold here where anything can survive, practically in terms of retention of the track. So it's a question of who likes it and in what numbers.
Yep. I'm just like thinking out loud here that like the obvious one as well, the type of music that has had the most sustainability, I guess, is jazz, man. Like jazz. Why did I say "man" at the end of it? It just sounded like
jazz.
It was like it's jazz, man. God,
it's all jazz.
But don't you think that jazz has survived everything? Maybe I know everyone doesn't love jazz, but jazz can be so many different things. But maybe people just be listening to jazz. Maybe just Kenny G.
Kenny G 2122.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I mean, if there was going to be one classical composer from today still listened to in 100 years, I would guess it's probably like John Williams. I reckon people will be listening to, Jurassic Park or Jaws or something. They're throwing on Jaws at a party.
I love it.
But other
Yeah, I
than
think it's
that,
interesting though with the AI as well. AI is going to change it. It'll be interesting to see if people are happy to consume art that is made by AI, and if they are, if the market decides that that's acceptable, then
well, there
fuck
are.
me.
What's that? That there's some like digital pop singer already, right? Like there's some like anime kind of girl computer entity thing, which
Yeah,
is
I
like the
vaguely.
front. I can't think of what it is,
I don't know.
but like I
Yeah,
think there's
but
an
that rings a
appetite out
bell.
there for like a fictional kind of artist, even if there was humans
It's
behind it.
gimmicky though now.
I
It's
mean, that's
gimmicky though
gorillas,
now.
right? Gorillas are quote unquote fictional artists.
Yeah, yeah, it's completely different though, isn't it, Nick?
Yeah,
It's just,
yeah, it's not AI. I'll give you that.
but it's. I get the gimmicky thing. Like, I'd like to hear an AI song now, but if that's just what happens,
Well, we
if
talked
that's just
about
what
this
the
with
market
the
is.
was it the Drake song, the Drake AI song?
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's out there. Like people have attempted now to use that technology to get there. So I don't think we're far away at all.
yeah.
So I think definitely 100 years. You look at the technological evolution in the past 5 or 10. We're definitely talking completely computerized art by that point.
Can't wait.
Can't wait. If you've enjoyed this conversation, well, thank you so much for rejoining us and for spending your precious ear time with us. There's plenty more episodes in the past on the feed if you want to go check it out. Like the aforementioned Christmas special with our Christmas songs. If you haven't yet gone and had a listen, please do. It's a great one. And you can then listen to that full album on Spotify. Search for Deep Thought and A Very Deep Thought Christmas, Volume 1. You'll get 10 wonderful Christmassy themed songs, perfect for January. The other way you can get in touch with us is by sending us an email. You can go to deepthought@gmail.com and flick your thoughts into a box, press send, and we will receive it. You can follow us on Instagram, where you can get pictures and other little bits of news when an episode goes live. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, and just tell people you like that good things exist and they should go listen to them. So thank you for your contributions to our ongoing success.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
I wasn't listening. I wasn't listening at all.
I watched your eyes glaze over.
Now we're doing Baba Vanga. People want the Baba Vanga, Nick.
Do they want the Baba Vanga?
Yeah, they do. It's fun. Okay.
It's Funavanga.
She was also correct, which she was
Okay.
correct about.
Well,
Okay, so
please set the
I know
scene.
Nick doesn't want to do this, but we're doing it. Okay, because I have control as well. I'm part of the show. Okay,
Derek!
I have agency.
Derek! He's fucked off. I think he's still dealing with the consequences of what you said to him.
Yeah, he's Devo. All right. So Baba Vanga, as you'll all remember, is this mystic who's now dead, has been dead for 28 years now. But she's been called the Nostradamus of the Balkans, and every year since I can't even maybe 2022, we've looked at
Every
her
year.
predictions
We've
every single year.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
a fan
important.
favorite.
It's important to know what we've got ourselves into for the year ahead. So this is important scientific information.
Absolutely, and just to give us just to read a resume a little bit. I mean, Baba Vanga is predicted 9/11.
You've got her
for
CV.
example. Yeah, I got I got something.
She's on LinkedIn.
No, it's on Unilad actually.
Great.
She predicted 9/11. She predicted Trump, right? And so last year, I won't go through last year's predict. Actually, maybe I should.
Yeah, I
No,
think we
won't.
should check in with her success rate from last year.
Okay. So last year she predicted, this one came true, a devastating solar storm. So let me just. So there was. It turns out there was like a really bad solar storm that hit somewhere on December 1st. So man, if that doesn't scare you, I tell you what.
Yeah.
I don't know what will. So she predicted last year for 2023 that there'd be a change in the Earth's orbit, which I think we can all agree did not happen. She said there'd be a bioweapon atrocity.
Oh,
I'm not sure.
Well,
No,
no. I mean, other than the
really.
vaccines.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm just going to get into the 2024 ones.
Okay, so you haven't really seen any confirmation of accurate predictions from last year. Is that sort of the takeaway there?
No. Well, Unilad actually said that that she predicted the solar. So the solar storm was the real terrifying one. That
You're right.
but we just don't know where it hit. But NASA was involved.
NASA. Well, if NASA was involved.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying that because.
So now that we've established her credentials, we can take 2024 seriously because there's big things coming.
She gives 9 or 10 predictions for every single year up until the year 3000.
Yeah,
which is a lot of work. A lot of work.
That's 30,000 predictions. Yeah,
that's 30,000 predictions. And if she gets one right every fucking 10 years, that's still a pretty impressive strike rate.
Yeah,
I defy anyone to get one of their predictions right every 10 years.
Yeah, the bloody weatherman can't even get that kind of hit rate.
Yeah, sing it, sister. All right, so 2024, the things to be afraid of or optimistic about. Baba Vanga in 2024 predicts that Vladimir Putin will be targeted by an assassin. She has reportedly claimed that someone would attempt to kill the Russian president, who is responsible for launching the military operation that began the ongoing war in Ukraine. So Vladimir Putin could be assassinated.
Yeah. And to be clear, what year was Baba Vanga born?
I think 1612.
Okay.
She lived for 400 years.
Wow. Okay. Plus. Well, very specific.
Yeah.
Watch out, Putin.
Watch out.
And to be honest, if I'm a Balkan prophet and I'm connected to the needs and I have a sense of nationalism, I'm not sure that I'd put out there that someone's going to hit Putin. Surely it's in your own best interest just to keep that one a little bit quiet rather than, for geopolitical reasons. You don't want to put out there and alert him to the fact there'll be an assassination attempt. Surely, it's for everyone's benefit. You're just like, shh.
Well, it's an interesting one because she died in 1996. I don't think Putin was in power then.
Yeah.
So, to be honest, I don't have a direct source. I'm just using, as I said, unilad.com.
Yeah.
But I mean, the solar...
Up there with the New York Times, Unilad.
Number 2, biological weapons
alphabetically.
And increased terrorist attacks. So Baba Vanga believes that the number of terrorist attacks would increase in Europe, and that a big country is set to test biological weapons in the new year.
Oh, uh-oh.
Okay.
Where are my good predictions? Where's something exciting and positive?
We started off with the good one. Number 3, there'll be a massive economic crisis. Now, this is interesting because I think we're heading that way, aren't we? I'm not a financist. If you could believe that.
No, you're not. You're not a financist. No.
I'm barely a linguist.
Okayist.
So this is Unilad's copy, not mine. I mean, this is quote. I mean, you could say that we've been in an economic crisis for long enough now, but Vanga alleged that there is more to come due to geopolitical tensions, a shift in economic power from the west to the east, and escalating debt levels. That could happen, Nick. Don't say it couldn't. It could.
I won't. I'll allow her that one.
4, terrifying weather events.
Oh gosh, terrifying.
Due to climate change, this prediction isn't at all surprising, as countries all across the world are experiencing increasingly extreme weather events. True, but according to Vanga, there's more to come. Oh man, more floods,
even more
fucking
than terrifying.
Earthquakes.
Oh gosh.
Number 5, cyber attacks.
It's so impressive how ahead of the game she was technologically back in the 1600s.
She died in 1996 at the age of 468.
Yeah.
And she was like, it's going to be a cyber attack.
She was very
What
switched
cyber
on.
attacks, Baba?
You'll see.
I don't know.
I won't tell.
Yeah, does she know what the internet? Considering the internet was only in its infancy when she passed the mystic's prediction that hackers will increase their attacks in the online space is impressive. She claimed cyber attacks will take place against vital infrastructure, in turn creating a danger to security. Wow. Baba.
So prescient.
Already happening.
Shade
Number
on
6,
Optus.
new treatments for illnesses. So
Okay. I think
she's just basically saying...
She's got a bit bored. She got halfway through and she was like,
basically,
oh, fuck, I'm out of ideas.
Basically, she's predicting that the medical community
still exists.
Isn't taking the year off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thankfully, there's some positive. So, okay, well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Vanga anticipated new treatments may become available for illnesses that are currently considered terminal.
Oh.
So
may, though. She's really left herself some wiggle room there. Even with the most generic, broad statement, new treatments will become available. She's allowed herself the caveat, may become available. Just in case we do have a year where nothing happens.
She's like, don't quote me on it. Like, you wrote it in a book.
You wrote it.
Though. You wrote a book on this. Yeah, so pretty terrifying stuff. Like, I mean, it's nice to get a bit of a roadmap, or like to get a little bit.
I thought you said there were 10 every year.
Well, only 6 this year, Nick. Usually 10. Okay.
Okay. Right. So, is this possibly just because Unilad got bored halfway through as well? When they saw that she'd phoned it in, they're like, "Well, if you're not trying, I'm not trying."
Yeah, I mean, look.
Or is this just this is just AI Unilad being like, look, I'll give you 6 of the 10, but you have to fill in the rest yourself.